Welcome to Scotting Movies. Um, some movies break your heart, some movies heal your heart, and some movies can't even find where the heart is. That's what we're going to talk about today. Is a movie that couldn't exactly find out where the heart was. It's a movie called Clara's Heart, uh, and yes, there was a little bit of pun in that opening. Um, Clara's Heart is a film with two souls stuffed into one body, and neither of them is entirely comfortable being there. So let's talk about it. What is Clara's Heart about? It's probably a film that many of you have not seen, or maybe even not heard of. But it's based on a novel by Joseph Olshan, and stars Whoopi Goldberg as Clara Mayfield, a Japanese housekeeper hired by a wealthy American family whose life has quietly imploded after the death of their infant daughter. The son, David, uh, played by a very young Neil Patrick Harris, in his film debut, is caught in the emotional fallout of this unraveling family. His parents are physically present but emotionally absent, and then they decide to divorce after the grief kind of tears them apart. And into that void steps Clara, who slowly becomes his emotional anchor. Here's the thing, though: the movie thinks that it's telling one cohesive story when it's actually telling two very different ones. Um, so let's talk about these two different stories. Um, the movie is trying to juggle these two narratives. One of them is this fractured American family dealing with, or not deal, or choosing not to deal at all with the grief of losing an infant daughter. They have this son who's kind of caught in the crosshairs, and the grief tears them apart. It forces the family to, or the marriage to disintegrate. Forces. Neil Patrick Harris's character to choose which side to live with, acts out because he doesn't know how to process his grief, doesn't know how to deal with his parents splitting. Uh, so there's that story. The other story is Clara, who is uh, dealing with a past trauma of her own that slowly comes out as the movie goes along. She had lost a son in her life as well, and this grief defines her in the story as she goes throughout the narrative, and she sees. Um, Neil Patrick Harris's character, David is his name. I was trying to remember his name. That she sees David as kind of an embodiment of her former son, even though obviously her son was uh, Jamaican and black, and David is about as polar opposite to that as possible. She sees kind of the spirit in him, and so there's this growing connection between the two characters as she deals with this grief, and as it later comes out exactly what happened, and how she lost her son, and how horrible and horrifying it is. So there's these two different stories. Obviously, grief is supposed to be the connective tissue between the two, uh, and kind of how uh, one family's grief pulls them apart, and another one kind of helps pull them together. But it's not really there. It's supposed to be, but it's not. Um, and So both of these stories, I think, would work on their own uh, in a film. They're both large enough themes that you could really extrapolate a lot of information, and uh, a lot of really good performances, and a lot of good story among both of them. I mean, we talked about a movie a few weeks ago called A Handful of Dust, which did the same thing for an upper class English family. The grief of losing a son tore them apart, and so we've seen movies that have been able to focus on one of these aspects. And so I really think that you pick a movie, any movie, kind of a thing. You choose this movie and you follow that. You can have these characters in them, but the problem is that they clash badly together. The parents, played by Michael Owen Keane and Kathleen Quinlan, are walking cliches in this first storyline. Their grief is treated more like a background setting than an emotional reality. They feel like characters from a lifetime drama that got trapped into in a far more thoughtful film. You're told they're grieving, sure. You're supposed to see it. You're told that their marriage is falling apart, but you never really feel it. They go along in this background because the other story is so much more powerful, is so much more um, part of the foreground. Uh, and that's kind of what happens when you try to force two storylines together that have no business being in the same film together. Is one of them is pushed into the background, and it becomes rote, it becomes cliche, and it becomes bad. And that's what happens to this storyline of this family falling apart. And it really shouldn't be that way. Uh, it's surface level storytelling, and the movie spends just enough time with these characters to be distracting, but not enough to make it matter. Uh, the other storyline works for the most part. We'll talk about that in a second. But it it's the more powerful of the two, partly because of performances, partly because it just seems to work better within the context of this film. Uh, and so let me jump into the performances a little bit. Whoopi Goldberg, first of all, is phenomenal in this movie. It's one of those rare movies where you have a really good performance in an otherwise bad film. She brings warmth, gravity, quiet devastation to this role as a mother, a grieving mother over the loss of her son. She isn't just the magical housekeeper that fixes everything. She's complicated. She has real trauma that she's dealing with. That pain simmers beneath every moment that she shares with David, who reminds her of her own child. Her scenes are subtle. Uh, there's strength in what she is doing. She talks back to the parents, not out of some kind of rudeness, but out of a confidence that comes from her. There, that strength in there. When she does open up, it lands hard. Uh, this is Whoopi Goldberg at her most vulnerable, and it's one of her best dramatic performances. No joke. It's the best thing in this film. Neil Patrick Harris, he shows legit promise in this movie. This is his first film. He had been in a TV show called Doogie Howser MD. Most people know about that. Uh, and so he had been acting before, but and this is his first feature film role, and he handles some pretty heavy emotional beats with pretty good poise. I mean, you can see the early flickers of an actor that he'd eventually become. Uh, but there's an issue in this. At certain points, and I cannot stress how weird this is, he starts talking in a Jamaican accent to Clara and her friends. Why? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. Like maybe it's supposed to show how close they've become. I guess, but it starts to happen before they become close. Maybe it's meant to be some kind of endearing. Maybe they just thought, hey, let's give Doogie Howser a dialect coach and see what happens. I mean, it does not land at all. It's cringy. It's borderline offensive. It absolutely pulls you out of the moment that you're in. Uh, you're watching this quiet, emotionally charged scene, and then Yaman. Uh, and he starts throwing some weird accents in there. I mean, he's okay at the accent, but it doesn't make sense why he's doing it. Suddenly, you're in this SNL sketch that, for whatever reason, it does not make any sense. It is the worst thing in the whole film, and I still, to this day, cannot understand why they put that in. It doesn't make any sense. So here's the frustrating thing. Uh, there is a powerful movie in here somewhere. It's lost beneath layers of stuff that doesn't belong behind. I don't know again with the accent if it was uh, the screenwriter or the director or the performer or a combination of all three. But behind all that, behind the performances of the parents that are so cliche, behind a story that doesn't belong in here, somewhere buried within here is a really powerful, touching, good story. Clara's story in particular, her grief, her past, her bond with David. That's the film. That's it. That's where the focus works. That's where the focus should have been. You see glimpses of what this film could have been. A quiet, aching story about two people finding connection, finding solace in each other's grief. If the filmmakers had trusted that, if they had made Clara and David, those two, the true center, like the title suggests that it should have been, trimmed the excess melodrama. I mean, this really could have been something special. Instead, we get a movie that's constantly pulling against itself. Heartfelt in one scene, hokey in the next. So Clara's Heart is a borderline disaster of a film. There are moments that absolutely work. There's a great performance by Whoopi Goldberg in here. Whenever she's on screen, she's really good. For every emotionally resonant moment, though, there's an accent, or there's another one that feels like it wandered completely over from a different set. It's uneven. It's tonally confused. Honestly feels like a bad missed opportunity more than anything else. So what film? What grade am I going to give this film? Uh, I'm giving this a D plus because there's so many things that ruin what could have been. You see flashes of the greatness within this, and the fact that it was hindered and hidden by a lot of other bad choices by filmmakers makes this even worse than it maybe would have been otherwise. This is a D plus film. It's not unwatchable necessarily, but it's hard to recommend as a movie. It's just buried. There's heart. Claire's heart is buried in a story that doesn't quite know how to handle it. So, have you seen Clara's Heart? Do you agree with me, or do you absolutely disagree with me? Uh, Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, talk to me. Thanks, everyone.